Right, members, call the room to order, please. Thank you. That's excellent. Thank you. Welcome to the full council meeting of Thursday, the 28th of November, 2024. How time flies. But I'd just like to. There's no public speakers, but I'm sure we all know how to get out of the building. But I must just say the fire briefing is above. On the screens above, if you take time to have a look at that. The meeting is being recorded by Julie Briggs, and if anybody wishes to have any sort of objection to it being do so, if you can let her know. Right, we're just going to go through who's here, for those who may be watching, the raft of people who may be watching on social media. So I'm Steve Wayne, I'm the chair of the District Council. To my right is Lucy Peacock, she's the Vice Chair. To her right is Paul Wilson, the Chief Executive. And then we've got Peter Slack, who's the Chair, Civic Chair of the District Council. And they've got the Vice Chair is David Chapman, he's the Vice Chair of the District Council. To my left is Barbara Beardwell, and she's the Interim Director of the Corporate and Customer Services Monitoring. She's the Monitoring Officer. And I had to read a card there because it's a right mouthful. So next to her on the end is Julie Briggs. And on the actual recording is Jim Fern. So first of all, before we go on any further, and in front of me we've got Claire and just hang on a minute, we've got Claire. Yeah, I can't see your card, you see, but never mind. Claire Francis, is it? No, Claire Allen, and we've got Steve Capes, and we've got Karen Henriksen, who'll be, sorry about that, will be producing the reports this evening. I'd like to welcome, first of all, welcome to a return of Councillor Helen Froggatt, who was successful in the Carver Award. So welcome back, Helen, and I hope you enjoy your time here. Thank you. Another thing is that it's the first opportunity I've been at a meeting where I'd just like to, if he's watching Tommy Shaw, I'd like to wish Tommy all the very, very best for his future career, which I think will be very, very, beneficial and successful. But thanks, Tommy, for everything you've done. But there's other good news. Lucy Harrison has been appointed as the Democratic Services team leader, so she's got Tommy's job. So she's not here this evening, but I did say I'd mention it, and she can watch it on catch-up if she's nothing else to do. But thank you for that. Right, I think we'll move on to the agenda now. And the first thing is apologies for absence. Julie, can you tell us who's not here, please?
Councillors Betterex and Whitehead.
Thank you. Public participation, it doesn't appear as though there's... Oh, right. Are you going to present that? Yeah. So should we do that now, if you want to? So, Councillor Hobson, do you want to just speak and then give us the petition? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to present a petition posted to me for Derbyshire Dales District Council to withdraw the proposal for a temporary traveller site on the land southeast to Hopton Works, Middleton Road, Wirksworth, with 192 signatures. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll hand that to the monitoring officer because I think that's the correct course of action, and she'll review it. So thank you very much for that, Councillor Hobson. I don't think we've got any other public participation. So we'll move on to interests. So I hope there aren't as many interests as there were at the last meeting. But members are required to declare the existence of and nature of any interest that they may have in subsequent agenda items in accordance with the District Council's Code of Conduct. These interests are matters that relate to money or that which can be valued in money, affecting the member, his or her partner, the extended family and close friends. Interests that do become apparent at a later stage in the proceedings may be declared at that time. Do we have any interest at this time, please, that anybody wishes to disclose? That's no, so that's great. I'm now going to hand on to Councillor Steve Flitter, who for the leaders' announcements. Councillor Flitter, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, firstly, I'd just like to extend my welcome to Helen Froggatt, rejoining us on this council. She was a positive member last time, being involved in many subjects, and I hope that she'll be a positive member and join in with activities whilst she's here. I just wanted to mention that on Tuesday of this week I attended the EMCA transport meeting in Mansfield. It soon became apparent to me, being a non-constituent member, that we were asking all the questions, the three of us that are non-constituent, which means that all the papers had obviously been to the constituent members way before the meeting. And I just wonder what input we are going to have. But I did take the meeting very seriously, and you know, we were there to look at the transition and funding transport plans, looking at the core problems there. We've always known that East Midlands has been the poorest funded over many years, and obviously we are looking at a much better relationship this time, and hopefully looking at the allocation of funds that the government will make. I would just like to say that yes, Tommy, yes, he is really enjoying his 2 weeks that he's been in post. He was actually officiating at the meeting we went to, and he does send all members his best regards. So looking at some good news, that I think it's important that we do look for more good news, because there have been occasions where people are trying to talk down this council at this time, and I think there's some good news to be made. And firstly, I'm just going to highlight something on the economic development side, which over the last 18 months of economic development team have actually allocated 61 business grants worth a total of £641,000, £827, which in turn has attracted match funding of nearly £700,000, which brings into total an investment into Derbyshire Dales of £1.3 million. As a result of the grants, 19 businesses are introducing new services and 20 businesses are introducing new technology. That's going to create 51 new jobs and safeguarding a further 40 jobs. And that will act around improving productivity and increasing turnover and reduce carbon emissions. And just to think what people are saying about these grants, and one person said, receiving a grant from Derbyshire Dales District Council has been life-changing to a small business. The money we've received will allow me to take the business to the next level, and the grant is going to help future-proof for years to come. Also, Derbyshire Dales District Council has once again proved its commitment to local businesses in the Peak District. And the last person that I'm going to mention has already said that the grant proved invaluable in helping us to expand into larger premises and making us more efficient. We are already reaping the benefits in an increased turnover, and I have particularly taken on 5 extra staff with a new production line installed. And I think that's just a flavour of economic development and the well-being of our team here at Derbyshire Dales District Council. And leading on from the economic development, I have said before that I commend the people in the UK SPF team because the work that they're doing. And it was really encouraging at the meeting last Friday when a member of that group, Diane Beresford, who is the Deputy Chief Executive of the East Midlands Chamber of Commerce. She actually said that Derbyshire Dales were well informed, well in front of anybody else. And that's high praise, because she's a representative on a number of UK SPF boards, not only just across Derbyshire, but also Nottinghamshire. And as I said, she said we were far ahead. And in particular note that the RIG grant, that's the Rural Innovation Grant Scheme, has almost been committed and is fully committed, and is exceeding forecast delivery on outputs and outcomes. And I think that's a real positive note that the team are working hard. I also want to go on to what we've been doing locally. And in Holy's Park, we've already underway is the installation of a new £240,000 splash pad. And not only will that be an improved and accessible facility, but it will also be much environmental friendly than the one in the past. And if you look on to the next installation, which is in early January, £220,000 will be spent on the skate park. The public sector decarbonisation scheme, works have commenced this week on North Depot, and it is the first of two schemes taking place this year, both of which are partly funded by the public sector decarbonation scheme. The second project will take place at Worksworth Leisure Centres in the new year. And although we had a letter this morning saying that there was a problem with the Lido, I'm sure that we can pull that back, and we will be giving more information on that. Just to point out what our teams, they're not just here for the work. Our sports development team have successfully secured funding for a free Christmas party, including a hot meal for children who are on free school meals. And that reflects on this council dramatically on what our staff are up to. We just go on to the SWIFT project. With support from our climate change officer and the biodiversity working group, Derbyshire Swift Conservation has just been awarded a grant of over £215,000 from the National Lottery Heritage Fund to help these iconic summer birds to remain in our skies. And we're not finished there yet. Public toilet provision, which was a progressive alliance, we were committed to reviewing that provision and access to the public across the district. And I'm able to confirm this week that that work is now drawing to a close. And in January, members will be presented with a suite of options to improve provision and the number of toilets available across the whole of the Derbyshire Dales. We've also moved on electrification of our fleet, and we continue to move forward that programme, and I'm pleased to announce that we have made our first order of the EV fleet vehicles this month. And finally, we have to celebrate 50 years of this council, which following the result of 1974, we've come a long way as a district council, and we've secured funding to celebrate this by planting a commemorative tree in each of our market towns. I just want to go on to housing now, Chair, because I think that is an important feature. Just to mention that during the first half of 24-25, we have supported 126 households through the Household Support Fund and spent a total of over 102,000. And this has been to provide financial support for new and social and private tenants, including rent in advance payments, clearing rent arrears, helping with utility costs, and also provide practical help with white goods and carpets. So you see, we're doing quite a lot. But the thing that struck me this week, we talk about our priorities and our local our programme. 29% of our aims in 18 months have now been completed. 51% are now in progress, of which 86% are on track and 14% require a little further work to put them on track. 15% are to start, and that's due to them being programmed in year 3 and 4. Only 5% are on hold, and that's because we've got to look at legal, procurement and resourcing issues. After saying that, Chair, I would just like to say, in the spirit of cooperation within this council, I'm proposing that we use LAG in the coming weeks and months to discuss the budget implications, and then an open briefing to all members. And I say all members. Also, in continuing this theme and recognising the aspirations of members, I have asked the Chief Exec to arrange another open briefing with all members able to attend to understand and how we can accelerate the PA's ambitions to accelerate our affordable home strategy. And also, on the final point, Chair, I realise that we talk about long meetings, we talk about governance, we talk about agendas, and I am hoping that by the end of February we will be coming forward with a paper to take to the Constitution Group to look at how we can make governance of council meetings, committees more constructive. And that again will be with all members of this council. And I hope all members will take part in a positive manner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. We'll now move on to item 5, which I don't have a list of what Councillor Slack's been up to in the last month or so, but he's going to tell us. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I apologise, I didn't get the report out, but I can give you a verbal report and then send the report to you later. Way back in the autumn, it seems a long while ago now, with all the snow we've had, I attended Worcesters's civic service for the new Mayor of Worcester. It was a very well attended civic service, and the service was in St Mary's and the reception was in the Town Hall. Afterwards again, the following week, I attended Bakewell civic service, and again it was at the church at Bakewell, but also in the ladies' house on the main street going to Buxton. It was a really lovely reception. The MP attended, John Whitney attended, and it was quite a nice occasion. Looking at some of the events I went to Chatsworth, to the Lord High Sheriff's charity for the Armed Forces, and we heard quite a few stories told by lots of volunteers who were injured in Afghanistan. One particular gentleman commented he was taken prisoner and blindfolded and kept in solitary confinement for nearly 2 months, and he thought his life was finished and everything, and unfortunately there was a swap over and he did get released, so that was good news, really good news. Again, I switched on the Matlock Bath illuminations. The boats were really outstanding this year, some of the best boats I've ever seen you know, I go to it most years, and the boats were really outstanding. And Jeff was there doing the comparing. It took very well, as he always does, and it was a really nice evening, and the weather was fine, and it was very good. Moving on again, I attended the legal service at Cathedral at Derby for again the High Sheriff's legal service. Again, the cathedral's absolutely full, and I saw Sir Richard. Sir Richard was there attending. I believe as the vice. He'll be the I think Lord High Sheriff next year. I'm not sure, but he is a vice chair at the moment. And Richard was there. It was a really lovely service again, and you know, it's surprising how many services I've been to at Cathedral. I went to a service on D-Day at Cathedral, and the veterans were there, and one veteran was there. He was over 100, just 100. He came from Ilkeston, and they brought him in, and he walked down the church, and it was he got a wonderful hand of applause for all what he did in the war years at D-Day. So that was really moving, very moving. Recently, I've been to the remembrance services. One at Worksworth I attended, and my vice chair attended one at Maple, David, and I also attended one in the afternoon at Matlock. Again, the turnout at Matlock was absolutely enormous. I think it was, half of Matlock must have been there. It was absolutely packed at the top of the park at Matlock, and it was really outstanding. The soldiers and the band, it really brought home to me that what these people went through during the war years in that Second World War. As we get closer to the anniversary next year, 80 years, we have to, you know, deep thoughts of what these people went through in the war years. So I give him my whole heart support for all the charity work that's taking part in regard to this. Recently, again, I went to Matlock Bath. The first, very good. The leader was there, and it was really a lovely night again, the Festival of Remembrance. I think it's the first one at the pavilion, and it was really outstanding again. So hopefully that'll go on every year. So that, and it's coming up shortly on Saturday. I've got to go to Swaddling Coat for South Derbyshire's charity night. They have got a fair and stalls in the streets, and I'm really looking forward to attending that. And another charity event I went to at Ilkeston, it was a country and western night, and that was really good, and raised a great lot of money for the church charity. So I'm sorry I've not got a report out, but I'll send it to you in the next few days. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Slack, thank you for everything that you do, and you've obviously been a very busy lad, so thanks. Now then, we move on to item 6, which is the committees, and this is to receive the non-exempt minutes of the committees, which I will speak out now. Planning Committee of the 10th of September, the Scrutiny Committee of the 17th of September, the Licensing and Appeals Committee of the 24th of September, the Full Council on the 26th of September, Planning Committee on the 8th of October, Governance and Resources on the 10th of October, and the Community Environment Committee on the 29th of October. I'm sure you've had opportunity to read these minutes in the log, but does anybody wish to move them? Councillor Buckler, are you happy to move them en bloc? Does that find a seconder, please? Councillor Wilton? All those in favour, please vote. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Councillor Froggatt, who wasn't here, so that's fine. Thank you very much. Right, now we move on to questions. Item 7, questions under rule procedure. Questions from members who've given notice. And Councillor Hobson, you're opening the batting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And before we start, I'd like to agree with Councillor Slack. I attended the Festival of Remembrance at Matlock Bath. I believe Councillor Flitter was heavily involved in the organisation of that, and it was absolutely marvellous. So thank you. I have emailed in to thank all those who were involved. So my question is, Can the Leader of the Council tell all councillors and residents of the Derbyshire Dales when the notes of the temporary traveller site consultation meetings will be shared, and also when the results of the temporary traveller site public consultation and car park public consultation will be shared, and give a clear timeline for the decision-making process? Thank you.
Councillor Flitter to respond, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Hobson. At the request of the Chair of the Council, an extraordinary meeting of this Council is to take place on Monday the 9th of December at 6 o'clock in the Council Chamber of the Derbyshire County Council. The agenda for this meeting will be published tomorrow, and the results of the traveller site consultation and the note of the public meetings will be included in the agenda papers. And just in referring to the car park review, phase 1 of the car park review is to be considered at a meeting of the Community and Environment Committee on the 16th of January 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter.
Thank you. Councillor Hobson, you get one supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter, how can an extraordinary meeting of this full council announced today for the 9th of December 2024 be announced when, as a member of that Gypsy and Travel Working Group, I've not seen any of the notes from the 5 public meetings that I attended. I've seen no analysis of any of the consultation documents, and in fact I've not even been part of a Gypsy and Traveller Working Group meeting to discuss these recommendations. Will you ask the monitoring officer to investigate this decision-making process? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter.
Just to say that this decision to request a special meeting at the County Council on the 9th of December is clearly so that we are in open session and all information is going to be received. And that was at a request from the Chair of this Council, and the leadership were involved in that. The Gypsy and Traveller Working Group completed their work some time ago. I have to say, Councillor Hobson, I am disturbed that you haven't taken an active part in some of those decisions, and I do hope that we can, when all the information is put forward on that evening, that we can all realise this is a very serious and difficult problem, and releasing information to outside of the structure is difficult because we are still in the proceedings, we're still discussing, we haven't yet made any decision, and the time to go to the public and to other members is when we've got a conclusion and a paper to discuss. I certainly will ask the monitoring officer to look into this, but we, in our view, we acted accordingly to the rules set down by this council.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman, you have a question for the leader, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Flitter, many family farms, even those considered modest in size, as in Derbyshire Dales, may exceed the £1 million inheritance tax threshold, recently unfairly imposed by the Labour government, when accounting for land value, property, equipment and livestock. This will certainly result in significant tax liabilities, leading to financial strain, requiring farmers to sell assets or land to meet tax obligations. Add to this a potential imposition of a swingeing fertiliser tax. So will this council join me in supporting Dales farmers in their opposition to this serious threat to them and future generations of farming families?
Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, thank you, David. It's a very pertinent question, very interesting. And the clear answer is that I agree wholeheartedly with your comments. I don't want to impose on our Labour colleagues too much, but I do not think that this policy was thought through. And I think that as a council with a large rural community, we must be there to support them. And I would actually, I would hope that you would be involved, because I hold you with great integrity, to put something forward on this issue where we can act forward as a council in the council's name. So if I'm making that offer to you, to put something forward which we can all agree on. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Chapman?
Yes, I do. Steve, do you have a pair of Wellingtons? If so, would you like to pop them on and come and visit a couple of Dales farmers in my ward and emphasise that commitment personally?
I would, yes. Whether I need the Wellingtons or not, I'm always willing to go and meet people in the farming community, because we do need to support. They are the lifeblood of this area.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards-Walker, you have a question, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. My question is, does the leader of the council share the concerns of the Conservative group that Matlock's excellent post office on Bank Road has been included in the list of Crown branches that could be permanently shut down if it can't be transferred to a retail partner or an independent postmaster? I know I don't need to add how so many of us depend on the regular services post offices provide, but in our case, with us having lost our physical banks in Derbyshire Dales, we cannot afford to lose this post office's banking facilities now they have become so important. And if you do share our concerns, can you suggest how we may unite, please, to secure the Matlock branch's future?
Councillor Flitter to respond, please.
Again, I wholeheartedly agree with the comments that you've put down, Councillor Walker, and I think it's the right time to bring this up at this stage. We have at Matlock Town Council discussed this issue, and we've discussed things such as a petition, but we didn't go ahead with that at that particular time because we didn't know what was in store for the post office. We'd heard that obviously there could be a retailer or a private individual to take over, or they would be offered, but as per on Facebook, it's always highlighted that the branch is closing. Well, we wanted to get some real firm information, but as I've just offered to Councillor Chapman, if you want to be involved in putting something forward from this council, initiating a meeting with the post office, and you want to be included, I'm quite happy to take that on board.
Councillor Walker, have you got a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Splitter. Not really another question, but just I'd like to add, I realise there's an alternative post office on Lime Tree Road, and others nearby in Tansley, 2 Dales and Cromford, but it's just another inconvenience for small businesses that are currently reeling from the increased minimum wage and greater employer NI contributions that are due to come into force. Thank you very much, and I would like to be included. Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. And the problem is a lot of these small sub-post offices just could not take on the amount of work that the Matlock main post office takes on. But we do recognise that and look forward to working with you.
That's excellent. Thank you. That ends the questions under Rule 15. We now move on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting dated the 26th of September. Anybody... I hope you've all had a chance to read them, and does anybody want to move them as a true and accurate record, please? Councillor Hughes, anybody to second? Councillor Lees, all those in favour to accept these minutes, sorry. Anybody against? Any abstentions? 1, 2, 3 abstentions. That's moved, thank you. Right, we now move on to the first of our items to be put forward this evening. Can I just remind members that questions are questions, so questions will be questions, and when we go into debate, if it could be concise, and also you get a maximum of 3 questions, because I think that is fair. Otherwise we're going to be going till 10:30 again, and I'm tired. But so now I'll ask Karen to present the report on the capital programme update. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the report on capital spending to the end of October, with projections for the year 24-25. And the key message is that capital spending in 24-25 is now expected to be £8.5 million less than we previously thought. So that's been reprofiled and mostly moved into subsequent financial years. So the reasons for that and other revisions are shown in the report in paragraphs 2.4 to 2.9. This time round there are no new bids for the capital programme, so it's a simpler report. The programme is now due to total £33.5 million and it's fully financed. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. A good report. Has anybody got any questions of Karen, please? No questions that I can see. Oh, Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Karen, I don't want to put you on the spot now because you can perhaps get back to me, because I was going to ask an urgent question today, but somebody else has already referred to this issue with the Arc Leisure decarbonisation plant. We've obviously only spent 17,616, but we've got that budget approval of that. So if the planning was withdrawn last night, so presumably that will be going back in.
So I understand there's a problem with the scheme for the Arc Leisure. So we'll wait. That came to light after we'd produced this report. So we'll be reflecting the changes in the next report.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so no more questions. So would anybody like to move the 5 recommendations as printed? Councillor Wilton, would you like to speak?
No, thank you. I think it's a great report again. Thank you, Karen. Thank you for all,
Thank
all
you very
you do
much.
for us.
Councillor Buttle, do you wish to second? Right, so it's been moved, it's been seconded. Now we're moving to debate. Does anybody want to raise anything in relation to this report? No, so it's been moved, it's been seconded. So can we now take a vote of all those in favour to accept the recommendations as was written down? Any against? Any abstains? No. So that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 10, which is the revenue budget monitoring for quarter 2, 24-25. Karen, would you like to introduce this report? Thank you.
Thanks again, Chair. So I'll keep it fairly brief. So this is the report based on revenue spending to the end of September with projections for the rest of the year. And for this one, we're forecasting now an underspend of just under £1.4 million. The main reasons for that are shown in the table in paragraph 1.3. The large items, most significant items on there are additional investment income of £400,000. That's come about because interest rates have stayed higher than we'd forecast, and also because we've not spent the money that we had set aside in the capital programme, so our balances are higher as well. Another item contributing to the underspend is an underspend on the waste contract, and that's mostly due to inflation being lower than we'd forecast. And the final large item is additional income that's been received for car parking, so that our car parks are doing much better than we forecast. The report also includes an updated medium-term financial plan. You can see that in paragraph 2.3, and that shows that if government funding and other factors stay as they are now, we should have a reasonably sustainable financial position without having to make significant savings. However, we are there is a pessimistic forecast as well that reflects potential changes in government funding, and that shows that we would have a budget gap of between £2 million and £3.6 million over the years. We have today received the policy statement from MHCLG setting out the policy behind the local government finance settlement for 2025-26, and the key message in there is that they say we will ensure that no local authority will see a reduction in core spending power in 25-26 after taking account of council tax increases. So for 25-26, that's pretty much what we had in our MTFP, so that's reasonably good news. But the letter does go on to say that from 26-27 they'll provide a multi-year funding settlement, which is good, but the not so good is that they intend to reset business rates retention system and start to allocate grant funding based on the ability of areas to raise income from local taxes and an up-to-date assessment of need, and that might lead to the significant budget gap that we've put in our pessimistic MTFP. We'll know more when we get the actual financial settlement on the 19th of December, and I'll let members have information after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, please? Councillor Linthwaite.
Thank you, Chair. Karen, I was just wondering, the increase in the car parking income, 315,000 is a lot. Is that, do you think, due to increased numbers of visitors, or is the pay by phone making it easier for us to collect money, or is it something else?
I don't really know the answer to that. I would have to ask the car parks manager, but I do know that pay by phone is steadily increasing to make it easier for people to pay.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, Karen, there's about a 10% difference underspend. Is that now, or is that forecast at the end of the year?
The 1.4 million is the forecast to the end of the year.
And is that 10% is quite a large discrepancy between the forecast budget and what we're now expecting. How do you feel about that?
Well, the 10% that you've worked out is based on the net expenditure. If you think about the gross expenditure, that's over £40 million. So in those terms, it's a much lower percentage. I can't do that off the top of my head, but it's a lot lower. So if you look at it like that, it is low. The underspend is significant this year. I think particularly the waste one, that we set those budgets when inflation was very high. So I think we are seeing savings because inflation didn't go as high or stay as high as long as we expected. In some ways, the savings are a good thing because it will enable us to put money aside in reserves that we might need if our financial situation deteriorates.
Councillor G.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for your exceptional stewardship of this council's finances, but this sort of pessimistic possibility that you suggested, which you were talking about a deficit, is that an in-year deficit between, is it 2.5 and 3.5 million you were suggesting? I mean, could you just make sure that we all know as a council what percentage that is of the overall budget, because it sounds quite a large amount of money in terms of in-year deficit, which is slightly worrying. But
it is,
because some of us aren't quite as into it as you are, obviously.
It is a significant deficit to fill. I mean, the government in their paper say that they are going to have transitional arrangements to help any authority that might lose, but we've yet to see what they might be. And they talk about extending the current regime of exceptional financial support. So we need to wait till the consultation paper's out, and I'll probably bring something to council for with a suggested response to the consultation paper.
Yeah, and we'll be obviously know when this cliff edge is likely to hit us. So
Well, it's due
yeah.
to start from 2026,
Yeah,
27.
so it's soon. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor G. Councillor Ball?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just going on about 1.11 as regards the underspend on staffing. So my comment is, obviously, you've got 159k there, and then, but I don't see that it's been where we're putting that back into on the underspend into all these reserves. But my comment being is, obviously, we still have to fill these places with staff. So, you know, would that not be prudent to be saying that, you know, that money is still there and that will be ring-fenced on that situation?
So I think the savings that are shown there were based on savings to date, where posts have been vacant to date.
Right.
When they do the forecast, they will assume that posts will be filled from a certain time.
Okay, right. So the 159 is still,
it's what we.
it's there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hobson?
Thank you, Chair. Once again, Karen, you are very prudent with our finances. But just a couple of things, you know, overachievement of garden waste income and overachievement of car parking income, particularly for car parking, you know, people come to town, it's all right saying they're free before 11 and after 4. A lot of people do have to, for Dales residents, a lot of people do have to come at those other times. And it may be a choice if they have to come and pay for car parking, that they either don't come, go somewhere with free parking, or stay a shorter time. So I think we can't just see it as a savings scheme. You know, we should be thinking about the people that are paying, you know, council tax, these fees, day in, day out. Thank you.
Is there, do you want to come back on that, Karen?
I'm pretty sure that those are the types of considerations that the car parking review group have been looking at.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Hobson. And just for information, my understanding is that it's now 3 o'clock, not 4 o'clock. So just if anybody's, just in case anybody's watching. But thanks very much. Right, so that's the end of the questions. I can't see questions from anybody else. So would anybody like to move the recommendations? Councillor Shelley? There are 4 recommendations, so thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I've got no hesitation in moving those at all. As other members have already said, Karen, it's a very comprehensive and very clear report, and it shows where we are. And I've had my thunder stolen. I was going to use the word prudence as well. That's what it shows to me. But it shows also that there are potentially some storm clouds on the horizon as well. So, you know, for those people who think that we are, you know, we're not spending money or we're not spending it wisely, just look at that that potential risk there in paragraph 2.3. And whilst it's obviously good you're saying that the government is now, it sounds like, committing to the holy grail of a longer term funding settlement for us. I know we'll all be very, very keen to see what the other side of that that coin is. But nevertheless, you know, I'd like to commend this, and particularly the way that we're putting money aside, 300,000 into new land acquisition, which I understand will be earmarked for potential housing in Derbyshire Dales, and that's something which I know members certainly on the Progressive Alliance side of the chamber are very, very keen to see the council energetically pursuing. So thank you very much for that.
Were you prepared to second it? Because both hands went up together.
Yeah, I'll
Councillor
second it,
Wilson.
please. Thank you.
It's like twins, but yeah, are you prepared to second?
Oh, prepared to second.
Yeah, thank you. So it's been moved, it's been seconded, so we can now move into debate. Has anybody got anything that they wish to raise? Councillor Nash, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. It's not specifically about the paper. I'd just like to say how nice it is to have Karen at the beginning of the agenda rather than at the end of the evening when we're all rushing to get away. And certainly the amount of questions that have been asked is certainly a lot more than has been asked in other meetings. I'd just like to say, with the finance review coming up and budget setting for next year, can we use this as a precedent for the future?
Yeah, well, if I can answer that one. I'm mindful, whenever we do the pre-meets, I'm mindful that we try and give the officers that have got reports, and if there are officers with reports at either end, then we try and bring them together. And for a long time, Karen's were right at the end of the agendas, so she's got special dispensation tonight. So, has anybody else got anything in debate?
Might not thank you for the extra question.
I'm sure she will. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour of recommendations 4, thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? So that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move on to agenda item 5, which is the Consultation and Engagement Plan 2024-26 and the 2022-24 outturn. And Claire Allen, would you like to present this? Thank you.
I would. Thank you, Chair. I hope you can all hear me. This report is about our consultation and engagement activities over the last 2 years and in the 2 years to come. We run 2-year action plans, which we report on every year. The 2022 to 24 plan came to an end in April this year, and the results are presented here as its Appendix 1. There's lots of successes to report. We've talked already about the Matlock Bath illuminations. We had 706 responses to a survey about them, all saying pretty much 65% saying it was fabulous entertainment. We've had housing needs surveys completed in Tissington, Fenny Bentley, Bakewell, Calver and Stony Middleton. We've mentioned the Matlock Skate Park, which has been updated and is being put through as a result of extensive consultation with the skate park users. And we completed our last resident survey in 2023. We're pleased to receive 1,977 responses against a target of 1,500 responses, and very pleased to note that the rating for overall satisfaction with the local area as a place to live was 86%. So that was very positive. There's lots of further detail on the consultation and engagement activities that we've done in the appendices, and the second appendix is what we plan to do in the next 2 years from April 2024 to April 2026, and that will include the next 2025 resident survey, resolved to hold every 2 years by members, and so that will be coming up in February, March of next year, and we will hope to see greater improvement in our results again. Just a point on timings and technicalities. Previously, these reports have come as a bundle where consultation and engagement has been bundled in with equalities. When I speak to the equalities report, which is the next item, I can explain why we've separated them out, but we've got consultation and engagement as one area and equalities as another complementary but slightly separately and distinct area. So, thank you very much.
Councillor Hughes, question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for a very, very comprehensive report. I've just got a question about housing needs surveys. Do you actually provide as a service to parish councils to in training them to do parish needs assessments, or is there documentation available to do that? And if so, do you have a plan to provide such training services?
The services, the services, they are carried out by the housing staff, so I would have to check with them and consult with them about the processes and get back to you, but I would be happy to do that.
I think it would be useful if you could perhaps send out an email to parish councils telling them about the process for doing housing needs assessments, because my experience is that they're not terribly well versed on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor O'Brien.
Apologies, someone gave me a microphone that didn't work. That must be someone gremlin at work there. I wonder why. because I've got my orange shirt on, so is that right? Looking at the proposed action plan for the forthcoming period, page 127 of the report, a thriving environment in the Derbyshire Dales. There isn't an equality objective there, so perhaps you could tell us what it is.
Councillor O'Brien, can I just say that's part of the agenda item 12.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So it's up to you. Have you got another question? It's fine.
No, I was ahead of myself. Apologies to all.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you. I probably should know the answer to this, but I've noticed that we're likely to be able to start shifting on the development of a housing plan project in Tideswell, which has been on hold due to neutrality issues. And it's been I think it was 2017, the last housing needs survey was made in Tideswell. And I was wondering if we would need to make sure that what we're doing now can be can be assured by a mini housing needs survey to make sure that we're still doing what is actually needed by the community. And I realise that's almost off topic, but I'm sorry about that.
Claire, can you answer that one?
I think that's probably something that's best left to Rob, the Director of Housing, and his team to answer the specifics of how exactly they're carrying out the surveys. But obviously they've provoked some interest, so I'm sure it's worth noting that this is something that councils would like to know a bit more about. So that's certainly useful. Thank you, Councillor.
So, Councillor Butler, let's email to Rob Coggins then. Okay. So, any more questions? Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Claire, for answering my email questions. I've just got one other point of clarification. I think my brain has made heavy weather of getting my head around this, but in the plan for 24-26 table, there are some references, for example, on what appears to be page 82, although I'm not sure how the pagination works because it's been on its side, but it says that it was planned in 22-23. So this is, for example, EV charging points.
Yeah.
Is that something that slipped? It was thought of then, hasn't happened yet, so it's still, or is this just another bite at the cherry?
No. What the table actually gives the outturn for 22-23 and 23-24, so that we can see what we've done in the past and therefore what we're going to take forward for the next 2 years. So that will be the it says for the EV charging points that the 2022-23 outturn, there is a link to the website and the web page where you can see all those results. So it's just to try and show the continuation, because there are some consultation activities that we repeat so that we can see how things are progressing in time.
I think I get it. So it's part of the plan, but it's part of a continuum.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
An attempt to show a progression and development in time.
Thank you.
Perhaps not as clearly as I would have hoped for, maybe.
Councillor Burford, Martin, did you have your hand up? Yeah, that's good.
First of all, thanks to Claire for such a comprehensive report. But one thing's just hit me when I've just been reading it, well, rereading it, shall I say. That's 2.4 following targets were not fully met. That was area community forums are still under review. Now, I suppose I've thought about this a few times lately, but I never sort of asked the direct question. What does this review entail, and what's the outcome likely to be? Are we going to have area forums reintroduced, or is there going to be one or several, or what?
Thank you for the question. I might defer this one to Steve, because this was being led by Director Helen Mitchell when she was in post. And
I think my answer, Councillor Burford, would be to say that's one for the new forthcoming Director of Governance and Corporate Services to look at when they are in post.
Right, so if nobody else on the list for questions, Councillor G.
Yeah, just a quick one. You know this housing needs survey which was completed for Tissington, Fenny, Bentley and Bakewell? Forgive me for being... Could I have some copy of that? The one for Bakewell?
At the moment, I only have that the housing team have reported that those surveys were done, but they've obviously provoked some strong interest. So yeah, I will have a discussion with the housing team and see what can be made available
so I'd really
in further
be
detail.
excited to see that, because and obviously we're acting as a statutory consultee when it comes to housing in Bakewell, given within Peak National Park. So yeah, and I presume my colleagues in the other areas like Carver and Tissington would want the same. If you could furnish us with that, please.
Yeah, certainly. As I say, it's not my service, but I will work with the housing team to see what we can make available in further detail.
Thank you for that, Councillor G. I now no longer have any questions on my list, so would anybody like to move the 2 recommendations, please? Councillor Dobbs?
I'm happy to do that, Chair. Thank you.
And does that find a seconder, please? Councillor Burfoot? So it's been moved, it's been seconded, and we're now going to debate. Does anybody wish to ask anything further in relation to this report? I can't see anybody. So, as I say, it's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour of accepting the 2 recommendations? Those against, please? And abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to agenda item number 12, which is the Equality Objectives and Plan for the 24-26 and the 2022-24 outturn. Claire Allen, it's you again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as with consultation, our equalities activities are based on 2-year action plans, which we report on every year. And as with the previous plans for consultation, the April 24 was the cut-off of the end of one plan, and then the new plans are into force from that point, or at least carry on until that point. So the 2022 to 24 outturn is Appendix 1, and then the new action plan for April 2024 to 26 is Appendix 2. The reason that we've decided to separate them out is just to allow a little bit more consideration of our equalities objectives, because we are required to set, as a public body under the Equality Act, we are required to set equality objectives every 4 years. We tend to do it in line with our corporate plan, so we've renewed our equality objectives this year, and they are in the Appendix 2, and we've done our best to align them with the corporate plan so that what we work on in equalities is progressing, supporting, and part of the work we're doing as part of the corporate plan. So that was the reason for separate them, is just it allows a little bit more consideration of equalities objectives by yourselves, if that's something that you wanted to take more time over. But I just wanted to point out that we are on track and doing well with our statutory equality reporting. We have a key target to provide equalities information yearly on our website, and that was provided on time in January 2024 and is available, and the teams around the council are now working to gather the information to be made available in January 2025 as well. So thank you very much.
Questions, please. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. Page 127, which relates to the action plan 24-26. A thriving environment in the Derbyshire Dales. We don't have any equality objectives stated there, so I'd be interested to hear what they are before we approve something with before we approve the plan. Looking at the equality objectives relating to housing that meets the needs of Dales residents, one of our key corporate actions was around improving levels of satisfaction for tenants in social and affordable housing, which is very much an equality focused objective, and that involved working with registered providers to improve customer satisfaction. But I note that's not included in the actions here, and perhaps you could explain why not. And lastly, looking at page 129, prosperous and sustainable Dales communities and businesses, working with the mayoral combined authority to ensure it addresses the identified needs of the Derbyshire Dales, fine. I'm a little bit unsure as to why that the performance measure you've identified there is the only, is a measure of how successfully we are influencing the combined authority and the needs of the Derbyshire Dales. It seems a very, very narrow measure to me of a very important area of work. So perhaps you could explain why that particular performance measure has been selected.
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of the work we're doing, it is specifically focused on equalities for this action plan. So there will be wider work going on within other areas, particularly economic development, to progress their other priorities. This is specifically to talk about identified needs in equality terms, which were seen as a rural area. We needed our own local grants programme that needed to be specifically addressed so that we could address the Derbyshire Dales community specifically rather than grants or programmes that were at county or regional level. So it's to try and address the specific nature of the Derbyshire Dales as its own community with its own needs. That's where the measure is trying to focus itself.
And the first two questions on...
Sorry, apologies.
While Claire's hunting for the second one, I can, since she's answered mine, I'll answer her first one, which was that there is an equality objective for a thriving environment, Chair, and apologies, it doesn't appear on page 100 at that point, but it is on page 123, and I think it's in the body of the report as well. It's equality objective number 3, to support a thriving environment that can be accessed, enjoyed and appreciated by all Derbyshire Dales residents and visitors. It should be replicated in the report, but apologies that it isn't at that point in the table.
Thank you, Steve.
And my question as to why the improving levels of satisfaction for tenants in social and affordable housing is not included as an action under the housing equality. To me, it stands out as the one that should be.
In terms of the housing work, I'm just getting it on my screen now. Around affordable homes, the equality objective was about developing the strategy and action plan and taking forward those recommendations. So it was seen that by having that strategy and that action plan, that would take into account the equalities impacts around affordable housing.
Is that it? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Claire, on page 110, I think this is something we're all interested in, the waste and recycling. The survey was not completed due to route optimisation. Do we know when that's going to take place?
I think they're planning to do one very soon, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last I had was autumn 24.
Okay, so it's
so
happening.
I think it may well be underway or coming very shortly, yeah.
It may be an opportune time just to say, I know various people have emailed into the council thanking our waste teams during the really icy weather. I've seen the bin men today. It's not quite as bad today, but you know, they do have really bad weather quite often during the year. So I did thank the bin men this morning, but yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Burfoot Sue.
Thank you, Chair. This really isn't a flippant question, but I can't find anything in that report about not allowing goldfish being given as prizes at travelling fairs. Should we have something in to forbid that?
I genuinely have no answer for that. I think that probably comes under another section rather than equalities. Don't believe goldfish are a protected group under the Equality Act.
I'm sure they are protected under something, but yeah. Councillor Franks, thank you.
I was just going to come up with a point of information here because I was inundated equally with the goldfish and emails. and made some inquiries, and in fact it comes under our licensing, because fairs and places that give away goldfish have to apply for licences, fairgrounds and the like. And we do have council policy that we won't give licences to where animals are given as prizes.
I believe it's more under cruelty, but
Yeah.
to animals. But are there any more questions apart from the goldfish question, of course? No. So would anybody like to move the two recommendations 1 and 2? Councillor Linthwaite, does that find a seconder? Councillor Hughes. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Does anybody wish to raise anything in debate? Councillor Dobbs.
Only point of information, Circa have started their survey because I was chosen.
You are the chosen one.
Just to add, when we do the resident survey, I strongly anticipate that we will ask questions about waste and recycling. So there's potentially 2 avenues to get residents' feedback, corporately across the whole district, and then specifically from the waste team's work themselves. Circo's work, technically.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you'll gather from my question that I consider that our corporate objective in the corporate plan relating to improving levels of satisfaction for tenants in social and affordable housing, which then involve working with the registered housing providers to improve customer satisfaction, should be a key part of our Equalities Action Plan. So I think that goes to the heart of a lot of what we do in housing, and I know that colleagues who worked on putting together this part of the corporate plan were very, very keen on this being a corporate objective in view of the issues that a significant number of tenants in social housing have with their landlords, and this affects tends to disproportionately affect tenants with protected characteristics, if you wish to define it that way, but obviously it affects a whole range of vulnerable people. So I would hope, with support from colleagues who were involved in putting that part of the corporate plan together, that I would like to move an amendment that corporate plan objective is included within the Equalities Action Plan programme for 24-26.
Thank you. I'll just ask that question now, just so that are you happy that if they can put it in, Peter, that we go ahead with it with that amendment that you?
Well, it may be that nobody else would like it to be, and I'm not presuming that.
I'll just go to Councillor Hughes for a minute. He's put his hand up.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, actually, because we have a lot of, I've been working with 2 housing schemes for older people in Matlock, and in both those cases the provider has quite significantly raised the charges associated with fuel and other expenses, and it's left a lot of people who pay for their accommodation themselves rather than receiving support from government or through ourselves, are out of pocket to hundreds of pounds a month. And as a consequence of that, I've been doing what little I can, really, which is monitoring what they're doing. They are doing the rest by themselves, and I've asked our housing people what support that they can provide, and it seems there's very little support that is being provided to those people under those circumstances by the council, by Derbyshire Dales, and yet it is one of our corporate objectives. So I feel that we need to do something about it, and perhaps I think with Peter I would raise the profile of this by having the objectives stated in the Equalities report. Thank you very much.
Right, so Claire, are you happy with what has been muted that's going to be added?
Yep, yes,
Yeah.
that would be fine to add.
Yeah.
It would be no problem to monitor that, and as you say, give it perhaps a little bit higher profile by including it as an equality objective. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So what we'll do then is we will have it that addition is added to the 2 recommendations, but basically we're just going to add it into your report and for the monitoring. Councillor O'Brien, are you happy that, do you want to come back on anything in relation to that?
No, I'm more than happy, and thank you, colleagues, David and Claire, for that support. I hope it's supported by cross-party.
Right, does anybody else wish to speak in debate? So what we're going to move, hopefully, that's up to you, but at the end of the day we're going to vote on the 2 recommendations with the amendment as mentioned by Councillor O'Brien to ensure that the objectives cover those protected groups in the housing. So all those in favour of that, please. Anybody against? Any abstentions? So that is carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 13, which is the Gambling Act, the Statement of Principles, and Steve Capes is going to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is Grace, the Licences Manager's report on the Gambling Act, and it is a report that's already been through the Licensing and Appeals Committee. The Gambling Act does impose a requirement on the Council to prepare a statement of licensing principles, its licensing policy, but it does have to be approved by full Council. So the Licensing Committee looked at it in September. It went out for consultation from the 30th of September to the 25th of October. There were only 2 responses received, one from the Lotteries Council and one from Public Health at Derbyshire County Council, and the amendments as a result of those responses have been made in blue in the policy that's appended. Other than that, it's exactly as went to the Licensing and Appeals Committee, and it's recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? No questions. Would anybody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Dobbs? Councillor Franks, did you nearly put your hand up? Yeah. So it's been moved and it's been seconded. We'll enter into debate. Has anybody got anything they wish to discuss further? No. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. So all those in favour of accepting the recommendation, please vote. Anybody against? Abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Right, we move on to agenda item 14, One Public Estate, the Matlock Locality Review. And the Chief Executive, Paul Wilson, will present this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The first part of this report sets the background context to what the One Public Estate programme is really about. And members may well recall that in January of this year, all members were invited to a member briefing on the locality review, at which point we considered the strategic outline business case. And that was really talking about the general principles of what the locality review was to look at. Following that briefing, the Project Control Board, which is managed by Derbyshire County Council, then met. Myself and Councillor Flitter are members of that Project Control Board, and they agreed to move forward to what's called an outline business case stage. I should say that the One Public Estate programme and the Matlock Locality Review in particular has been financed by a grant received from National Government. It is a Derbyshire County Council project, but clearly, given the fact that it does focus upon assets in the District Council's ownership, that's why we have a fairly crucial involvement. In terms of the strategic outline business case, when we considered that at the start of this year, that did look at what was termed a dual hub model to be taken into consideration and further developed. And effectively that looked at the commercial redevelopment and intensification of the use of the County Hall site and the relocation of the occupiers of the County Council's premises at Shand House. That's a project which the County Council are leading on and progressing entirely independently from the locality review. But the second and most significant part of that dual hub model involved the remodelling of the Town Hall. And effectively that looked at a number of options, including sharing our accommodation with a number of private and public sector partners, including the Derbyshire County Council Library Service, the Adult Education Centre, and potentially some health and wellbeing partners. That work moved forward. It progressed through the development of that outline business case, and effectively the report before you this evening provides you with a summary of the outcome. The outcome is outlined at paragraph 1.2 of the report, and it identifies three options. The first option is that for the Town Hall premises, option one is that District Council remain and we incrementally refurbish these premises for our own use. Option two is that we consolidate our occupation in the Town Hall and we allow partners to relocate, excluding the incorporation of Matlock Library. And option three, that the District Council again consolidate our occupation, include other partners into the premises, but include the incorporation of Matlock Library. And you will see from paragraph 1.2 that the floor space equations and the amount of occupation solely for District Council purposes moves from 91% under option 1, 57% option 2, 48% under option 3. In terms of what all of that means, the outline business case was then subject to an appraisal process, and a qualitative assessment was undertaken by the appointed consultants, and paragraph 1.7 outlines the outcome of that appraisal process. Effectively that indicates a ranking of preference, the first preference being option 3, that the District Council consolidate our occupation and we allow partners to come in, including the Matlock Library facility. Second option was option 2, District Council consolidating, excluding the library, and then option 3, the third preference was for option 1, the District Council to remain and incrementally refurbish. The remainder of the report talks about the financial implications of this, particularly at paragraph 3.9, where it talks about the options 2 and options 3, which would involve a capital investment of 1.38 million and 1.32 million retrospectively. Now the expectation in the business case is that this cost will be met entirely by the District Council, and I think that's a crucial point that members need to consider in your debate this evening. At the present time there are no funds allocated by this council in the approved capital programme, so that type of investment would either require provision being made in the capital programme, and if that wasn't possible, the assumption in the business case is that that would be facilitated by external or internal borrowing. Section 4 of the report really looks to establish how we should move forward as an organisation. Quite clearly the Matlock Locality Review does present an opportunity for the District Council to look at how we utilise the Town Hall accommodation. As with many organisations, the onset and establishment of hybrid working has had an impact, and there are times when this building is not as fully occupied as it could or should be. The option 1 scenario, in terms of us keeping these premises for our exclusive use, would involve us actually rationalising our accommodation for our own use, but also freeing up any surplus accommodation which we could let to any interested parties. And that's very much the approach we have been taking in recent years, as a number of partners now occupy accommodation in this building. I think in order to try and determine how we want to move forward with this, it really does come down to what type of organisation we really want to be in the future, because clearly as the main public-facing organisation in Matlock alongside the County Council, we do have a very strong presence, we have a strong visibility, and our residents have come to rely upon the services and facilities that we provide here. Under either of the options proposed in this, inevitably that would result in the District Council sharing our accommodation. We would have less of a visible presence, we would have less of a staff presence, because there wouldn't be sufficient accommodation within this building to accommodate all of our existing staff, plus the staff that would come into the building from our partner organisations. So I think that is a key consideration that members would need to have regard to in considering this this evening. The report is presented without a clear recommendation, because I think it really is for you as leaders and decision makers to determine how you would feel in terms of the operation of this council moving forward. Clearly we could operate under any of the options that are put forward, but they would have differing impacts and implications for the residents and the communities that we serve. But I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Just hang on. It was Councillor Flitter first.
Sorry, Chair, it wasn't an actual question. It was just a follow on from Paul as the other member on the project board. And I think tonight you can blame me for this this report being within this council tonight, because I was steadily getting disgruntled with the operation and the work done behind the OPE. I thought for a long time that this council, well, I remember years and years ago when this council was fully occupied, every office was fully occupied, and it was a thriving place to work and to visit. Now, since things have trimmed down over the years, we have got spare capacity, and I've always thought that we could create another income stream far better than what was proposed by the OPE, because there was only one aspect in my mind, and that was to bring everything together, pushing the district council into one level on the top floor of this building, and that is what I was totally against. But the other problems of car parking, I don't think was addressed. The effects on the town centre weren't addressed, and at the last meeting that Paul and I attended, it was thought that they should move on and discuss, and I had to stand up and say, well, hang on a minute, you've not even asked the Derbyshire Dales District Council if they want to go into the second phase of this. And I feel that I was totally disgruntled because I think that we were being led down the garden path. And I have to take into consideration the effect that this would have on staff. You're talking about a 5 or 10 year project, and what was being proposed is just about knocking every wall of this building down and making a truly open space right through the building, and then bringing in certain services which I don't think were really suitable for this building because of the security, because of confidentiality. But all the way down the line I was thinking this is just not on. And so therefore, you know, it is only right and proper that we look at what disruption that would mean to our staff, trying to work in a way that they do so professionally work within that time, with all the building works going on, and it's far too long a period to expect people to suffer. And I think that sometime we may have to, if we go along with this, we may have to even move out of this building while works is done, and that is another problem. So I thought that it was only right and proper, as I say, that members should have a right to discuss this, and then we can give the OPE board a clear direction. It's no good people at county and other places carrying on doing the work if we're not going to go anywhere. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and we have to come to a stage where we have to say so.
Councillor Flitter.
That's it.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
We're in questions, but I think it's important as leader, and your part. Yeah. Councillor Hughes, question, please.
I'd just like to say that I'd like to speak in debate and potentially move a recommendation or a proposal.
So no question at this time.
No, but I'd like to move a proposal later.
Councillor Shelley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul, for the report. Very, very clear again, except for one thing, and I may have asked this before in the distant past. I know the building isn't as occupied currently as historically it has been, and various income streams are being made at the moment, which is great. But we've got some figures here for our potential occupation in 4.3 under these different options. Is it possible just to have a sense of what the average occupation is at the moment, please?
We, as part of this exercise, we actually monitored the levels of occupation over a 2-month period by utilising the door access system, which everybody needs to utilise to come into the building. And over that 2-month period, which was March and April of this year, the average was over 70% occupation. So it is a very high level of occupation, fairly consistently across the week. Clearly, the advent of agile and hybrid working arrangements has had an impact, but in terms of how we compare to other organisations, particularly the County Council, our levels of staff occupation here are significantly higher. And some days, Wednesday was the day when most staff came in, that was touching 90% consistently.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Burton next.
Chair, a significant part of this report pertains to the Matlock Library. Now, has any decision been taken then that the county are looking to offload? Because we've heard earlier tonight about the potential loss of the post office. An important part of the town centre is our library. Can you enlighten us, Paul, on that?
My understanding from attending these particular discussions, Chair, is that the County Council have resolved that they wish to retain a library in Matlock. Clearly, as part of these proposals, they are quite keen to explore opportunities to have an improved facility which can be operated at reduced cost. My understanding is it's quite an expensive facility that they currently occupy there. Clearly, as a former house, it's not necessarily configured internally in the best way that you might wish. But my understanding is that they are committed to maintaining a library facility. It just may not be on that site in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report, Paul. Mine's a bit of a more wider context. In the budget, I think they announced their white paper from move to simpler structures for councils. Is that likely to affect us, and is it worth us delaying this decision until we've got that information? And do you have any insights what that might be?
I wish I did have some insights. I've certainly read a lot and heard a lot about it in the last few weeks, and the latest I heard was that the white paper on devolution is expected next week, so we probably won't have to wait too long. But certainly in terms of the local government press, clearly government is intent on having what's commonly referred to as simplified structures. There's an awful lot of discussion regarding two-tier local government and whether that is a model that government wishes to continue with or not. But I've also heard commentary regarding the fact that it may be more aligned to those areas which don't have a mayoral combined authority. Now clearly we have one now in the East Midlands, so whether that brings us into the reorganisation type debate, I really don't know. I don't think anybody knows, to be honest. But quite clearly, if reorganisation on a significant scale was to be launched by government, then effectively that would impact upon all operational facilities and services and estate, including the county council, because two-tier reorganisation would involve the abolition of the county council as well as district councils. So in that scenario, everything's on the table for discussion.
Thank you. Forgive me here, I had two. Did you put your hand? No, it was Councillor Lees next then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, if we did go for any of these options, could the building be separated into like wings, or is it be all the accommodation spread about between different floors, or would there be one sort of element of the building that would be used, or like say down that wing down that far side?
Certainly the plans that have been prepared as part of the outline business case do separate it into wings. The proposal would be that the partner organisations would occupy the 357 wing on this side. District Council operations would be focused upon the older parts of the building, and the entire top floor, level 7, where the planning team and estates team, licensing team currently are, that would be completely occupied by the primary care partners. So our accommodation, including retaining the council chamber and committee room, will be very much focused upon the traditional part of the building.
Councillor G, question?
Yeah, just a couple of questions, just so I'm a bit au fait with this. This one public estate, could you just enlighten me as to exactly who are the decision makers? Because I presume the people involved in one public estate are the ones who came up with the order in 1.7. Because at 1.2 it gives it in 1, 2, 3, and then it sort of reverses it in 1.7. And we talk, when you've been given us your information, you talk about partner organisations. I mean, who exactly are the partners? Are they, could they be anybody, or are they, is it partner organisations? Yeah, I think that's it at the moment.
Okay, so the first part of the report talks about what the One Public Estate programme is, and it is something which has been led by central government public land and property teams. It's a cabinet office initiative, and it really is about trying to make best use of expensive land and buildings occupied by the public sector in order to either generate economic growth, generate jobs, or generate just increased efficiencies in services. So it has been running for well over 10 years now. The Matlock Locality Review came about from a bid made by the County Council One Public Estate team in order to just have a look at what the opportunities may be in Matlock. And the partner organisations that came on board are, as I say, primarily ourselves, the County Council, GP, Health Service. Originally the police were invited but didn't choose to continue, and the primary care functions. So when I talk about partners, they're the partners that are specifically engaged on this initiative. But when I talk about other partners who may come into this building, clearly we've got a presence in the building from Citizens Advice, we've got Age Concern, we've got various housing partners that occupy accommodation in this building that we've made available to them. So the intention would be that we would continue that programme of our own rationalisation, and where we can free up usable accommodation and let it and generate an income stream, as we have done with existing partners, then that would be the option 1 scenario that we would continue to follow.
One last question, just for clarity. Do we own this building?
Yes, we do.
Fully?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next I've got Councillor Martin Burford.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is not a joke question in a way, but the last few days, I think it was either a member of this council or a member of the public who suggested to me that an option may be to offer the Cavernous building on Bakewell Road, which was going to be a cinema. And of course that scheme is being curtailed by funding problems, and we're not sure if it'll ever come back as a reality in the future. But it did occur to me that it was a useful suggestion that that could be a library. I think we've thought in the past, members of both town and district councils in Matlock, that the only use for that site would be a cinema. So an alternative occurs to me of a library. It's obviously the indoor market shop, next to the bus station. Hasn't really got any use. It's going to be mothballed for the next heaven knows how many years, I suppose, even though we're upgrading the bus station itself and the frontage on Bakewell Road.
Can you ask your question?
So I just wonder if that is a possibility.
Thank you.
And the second question is completely different. That's to do with the impact of, or the reason why One Public Estate should prevent the building of 2 affordable houses on Edgefold Road, right on the edge of this council's ownership. I can't see why we have to curtail that scheme because of One Public Estate. I can't think that it could be, that land would be used for anything else, as it's not taking up that much area of land anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I can take the second point first. I'm not aware that anything's been curtailed by the One Public Estate programme. There may well have been some separate dialogue regarding the feasibility of that with our housing team. I know it's certainly a site that they have looked at, but ultimately this council controls our estate, and if this council chose to release that land for development, it could do so irrespective of what the One Public Estate programme says. I think the issue that you're perhaps alluding to, Councillor Burfoot, is the very point Councillor Flitter raised, whereby if we were to intensify the occupation of this building, car parking would be at a premium. So it may well be that that part of our current car park area, if you like, was felt it may be needed. Coming back to your first point, this council has an agreed position in regard to Bakewell Road. It was a position agreed at council in December of 2023, and the cinema scheme has been put on hold for review in 2025. So at this moment in time, it hasn't featured as part of any of these discussions.
Thank you. Councillor Ripton, question please.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, can you just clarify that the capital numbers in 3.9, are they net or gross, or are they net of any potential revenues from new tenants, or are they gross?
They're net of revenue.
Okay. And you'd envisage getting new revenues from new tenants, is that?
Yes, absolutely. The indications from the business case is that over a 20-year period, those costs would be outstripped by potential revenue income from the partners. I think the difficulty with that is that you would not get any tenant, I don't think, signing up for 20 years. What you tend to find is that they would sign up for much shorter periods of time with various break clauses included. So there is an inherent risk in the council committing significant capital financing at day one on the assumption that those tenants will remain and still be in place at year 20, when an awful lot can happen and those break clauses may or may not be exercised. So that's the significant risk for the council, but those figures are net.
Right. And then just at a project level, I guess, because the numbers here are, I think, district council numbers, but if we were to say choose option 1 and do the minimum, does that effectively lock other I guess, participants in the project into higher costs for the longer term? And I guess the net impact on the public purse, is that greater?
Certainly in terms of the county council, it probably would be, because one of the other issues within this exercise is that the indications were that we could not necessarily rely on any capital finance coming from the county council's disposal, potentially, of the Matlock Library site. We also didn't get into discussions on what an appropriate rent level may be for their occupation. So there was an awful lot of unknown, but the one certainty that did come out of it was the expectation that we would finance the initial capital outlay to reconfigure.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Peacock, please.
I've got two questions. The first is you mentioned that the council officers are currently on 70% occupation from the recent survey. Is that 70% of the 91% district council occupation of the building as a whole?
It's 70% of staff who would, if all full-time staff came into the building at 100%, then the average is 70% across the working week.
Oh, okay. So in that case, so further question, if you were to work it out based on these assumptions that you've got in here, what proportion of the building would be free under those assumptions, if you see what I mean? That's question one. My second question, my main question really, is are we restricted to these options? Because is there another option whereby we don't give away we do go a bit more ambitious than just going incremental, but we don't give away like 40% of the building?
I think in terms of that last point, that isn't an option which we could pursue through the locality review. It certainly is an option the council could choose to pursue outside of the locality review, and I think that makes eminent sense, because clearly there are operational costs of this building. If we can minimise or reduce those costs by maximising occupation irrespective of who occupies the floor space, then that is clearly the right thing to do from the taxpayer's perspective. And that is very much the view that I think was emerging from the latest discussions that took place on this.
Thank you. Finally on my list I've got Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chair. I promise I have got a couple of questions. Might not feel like it.
I'm listening.
I kind of feel like I'm too unfamiliar with this, in the sense that I did read it earlier in the week and thought it wasn't on my horizon before, and it might just be me. The question is it just me? But that's not the only question. But I am unfamiliar and feel it's rather sketchy. And just for clarification, really, first of all, did I hear that the current occupancy level is higher than option 2 and option 3? And it sounded like yes, the answer was yes to that. So that's one question. So is there a proposal there to option 2, option 3, and what amendments would really need to be made to the occupancy levels in order for us to accept the idea of an option 2 and option 3? Never mind the building work, I'm thinking about the personnel work. That's one of the questions. You want to take that as it is now?
Yes, happy to take that, Chair. I think that is a very interesting point, and it comes back to my one of my initial comments regarding what type of organisation do we want to be moving forward, because as a district council we are relatively small to start with. I think the strength of the council is often in our size and the fact that the vast majority of our employees get involved in a whole manner of issues, both within their particular service areas but also outside. And inevitably one of the impacts of hybrid working that I think everybody has experienced is it does have an impact on the culture of the organisation. It's not quite as easy to get in contact with everybody as immediately as you could otherwise. It can be more challenging organising day-to-day business on occasions, but I think as an organisation we've managed that really well, and we've consistently surveyed the staff and we've had staff engagement and feedback, and myself and the corporate leadership team are very keen to maintain the right balance. If we have significantly reduced floor space, then inevitably there would be a significant number of staff who would be permanently outside of this building. And as the Chief Executive I have concerns about that, because I think it will impact on the culture. I don't think it will benefit the way in which this council operates, and I don't think it will benefit the way in which this council grows, develops new talent, brings people on, because it is so much harder when you've not got that physical one-to-one interaction.
I mean, thank you for that. I have got
one more question.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Can I just comment on that there, because
you can come back on that.
That seems to me to be a really, really key issue, and it's a key issue that doesn't really appear in the report. And I thank you for that, because it's a very, very, to me, it's a very important issue. I mean, there are a few things there. Obviously, you've said about no guarantees about the 20-year lease. You've mentioned the financial risk of that. I suppose my question is, does a decision have to be taken today? And the decision actually worries me, because it says council determines its formal response. And I'm not sure personally whether I could have a formal response, particularly based upon what you've said about the workforce, the personnel, the growth of people's development, and all those things that you've hinted at in terms of people being further absent from the building as part of a council employment group. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Wonder if you've got a final comment about that.
I think council does need to make a formal response, because there are only these three options on the table, and myself and Councillor Flitter have been requested to go back to the Project Control Board meeting on the 11th of December and advise of this council's formal stance. Because we are such a critical partner in this, our position will influence whether this project goes any further or not. As I said, the reason why I didn't put a particular recommendation forward in terms of an option is because I think there are so many different views on this, and I think it's important that members had the opportunity to consider the advantages and disadvantages of every option, because there are. advantages and disadvantages to each of the three options. But I'm giving you the perspective from the chief executive who's managing the organisation and the staff. You will approach it from the perspective of the council taxpayer, the feel of the presence of the organisation within the town of Matlock, how our communities might respond. So whilst we will clearly agree on many points regarding this, I think it's important that you had the choice, and that's why I didn't seek to lead you one way or the other.
Right, I had no more questions, but Councillor Nash.
Thanks, Chair. I know I've had one question already. From what you've said, Paul, is option 1 the best cultural and staffing option for us, in your opinion?
That would be my preference as the chief executive of the organisation, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Linthwaite, sorry.
Just a quickie. The additional costs to this council are very clear in 3.9. I'm wondering about the savings. Which organisation would be benefiting from the lion's share of those savings?
Thank you, Paul.
I think that may be a leading question, Chair. Clearly, there is a capital asset which the County Council would realise by the disposal of the Matlock Library site. Other tenants who are, other partners in this initiative in the main are renting accommodation, particularly the Adult Education Centre and also the primary care partners. So there's only the County Council holds a capital asset which could be realised, if that answers the question.
Councillor Maelstrom, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Is the future of the library safer with option 3?
Would the chairs agree?
Can I just let Paul respond and then you can have your minute? Yeah.
I can give my understanding of the council's position, and as I say, my understanding is that they have committed to maintaining a library facility in Matlock. It just may not be on that site. That's my understanding, but Councillor Hobson may know far more.
Well, I don't say I know far more, but it's my cabinet support role covers libraries, and as Councillor Burton and I, we were at a library event at Matlock Library, and I think you just called it a house, Paul. It's actually a very lovely library and a very successful library. And certainly if it wasn't there, I would be very disappointed. But I do understand that savings need to be made. But this administration has committed to closing no libraries, and there would be a presence in Matlock. But it's a lovely library as it is.
Thank you. I've got no more questions now. And so obviously we've got no clear recommendation. So Councillor Hughes, taking account of those recommendations, the options, you said you had a proposal. So would you please give us your proposal?
My proposal, which I'm put forward as a motion, would be to maintain our independence and therefore adopt option 1. That doesn't mean to say, that doesn't preclude us from taking on services at a later stage, but it gives us control over what we take on. And it also allows us to rent space commercially at perhaps a higher rate.
Can I just, because Barbara's writing this down as you speak, because you're putting it, you've not typed it up, this motion, have you?
No, I haven't.
No. So
no, I have. It is really to maintain our independence, and therefore to adopt option 1. Okay, so the rest of it is then flannel.
Thank you. Right.
But can I give my flannel, because I think it is part of the reason.
So you're putting forward a motion which we need to continue the debate, move into debate. We've got to have a motion to move into debate. So basically, give us some flannel, not too long, and then Councillor Bond had his hand up.
Okay. So the flannel is really that we have a number of roles, and one of them is to safeguard the interests of this council as opposed to every council. I can understand that there is a benefit in reducing the cost of local government overall in Derbyshire Dales or in Derbyshire, but the balance of risk and reward seems to be tilted very firmly against us and towards the county council, and as such it seems to be a risk that we should not be taking on our behalf, on our residents' behalf and our staff's behalf for that matter. So we're going to take the financial burden and risk associated with if we adopt either of the other two options. And payback is not guaranteed. The report talks about a concessionary rate, and as Ms. Wilson said, it's unlikely that we will be able to rent the space for a full period of 20 years from day one, which means that if we carry out major changes to the building, we might find that those changes make it unlettable in the future. So, and turning to the library, the county council is under is stressed at the moment financially. If they choose at a later stage to disband the library service, and we have made the changes in our building to enable us to host a library, we will be subject. We will not be able to receive the rent for that library in the future. And at the same time, if they do decide to close the library at a future date and it's in our building, by the time it's closed, it's likely that the Derbyshire Dales will be associated with that library, and when it closes, people will be critical of us for closing the library service, not the county council. So there is, as Mr. Wilson and Councillor Bond says, the culture is important, and also staff morale is important, and the uncertainty associated with the move, with the changes, the need for working away from the office rather than having an office to work in, and possibly hot desking and that sort of thing, which all reduce staff morale, I think are other issues that we need to take into consideration. There's uncertainty about the structure of future local government. We may continue in our present way, we may change to another way, but at this stage, why would we make a big decision like this not knowing what the future is going to bring? So it's the wrong time to be making this decision. And finally, if we are going to make any changes to our building, possibly we'll get a better return commercially than we will from renting to another local government authority. So my proposal is that we maintain our independence and rationalise our space for ourselves and not for our own benefit and not for the benefit of the county council. Thank you.
Councillor Bond, are you seconding that?
Yes, I am, Chair. I personally, for all those reasons, would go with option one. I would just say the higher value for me is in the impact and the development of the workforce that we have and will have, which in turn will benefit residents in the Derbyshire Dales. Socialisation, well-being, work-life balance, colleagueship, supervision, mentorship, development, career progression, all of those fit in with a strong culture that we want to promote. And I think that if staff are showing their intent to be in the building, I think that's a strong indication that they value the culture that is here, and that should be promoted even more in whatever way we can. So I would go with seconding the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So right, we're just going to formalise this. So basically, Councillor Hughes, Barbara will read out what she jotted down, just so everybody's clear about what we're going to debate. So.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the amendment as worded would be something like to maintain the independence of Derbyshire Dales District Council and therefore not adopt option one. So I've changed our independence to Derbyshire Dales District Council. I think possibly it reads a bit better like that.
To adopt option one, not to adopt option.
Yeah, and to adopt option one.
Just bear with me. Yeah. So that's the motion for everybody. Councillor G. You're the first in the debate.
Yeah, basically, I just thought that this actual paper could have been presented slightly differently because it was asking us to make a decision, and I totally echo what David said. The thing is, in terms of one public estate, we need to protect our estate, and in the current circumstances, I wouldn't invite Derbyshire County Council into it. You know, with some of the reports I've seen, our sort of in-year deficit is sort of swamped by theirs. So I think if you did, you'd never get paid. So I think, yeah, it's got to be option one with the amendment that David's made. I fully support that because that's the best way to go.
Thank you. Councillor Burford, Sue Burford.
Thank you, Chair. Our friends on that side may not like some of the things that I'm going to say, but anyway, here we go. I fully support what Councillor Hughes has come up with. We don't know what the future of local government is going to be, and I, for one, I'm very concerned about what that future might be. I think we need to be, as a district council, we need to be masters of our own destiny as far as that is possible. Now, Paul, you've talked about, as you see it, the need for our staff to be readily accessible to the community, and I fully endorse that. So what I would say is, let's not be railroaded by the county council, who are, as we all know, in dire financial straits, unlike this council. And it's clear that the county council have got their own plans for County Hall and for its future use. Let them get on with that. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime, maybe, who knows. But let's make our own decisions about this building and the future as far as we can of our contribution to local government. So I'm fully in support of option one with the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Burfoot. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make a suggestion to the mover and seconder in a moment, but I just have a little bit of concern that we sound rather little Englandish in talking, or little Derbyshire Dalesish in talking about preserving the independence of Derbyshire Dales District Council. I prefer to emphasise that we do believe in integration, and we do believe in collaboration in providing value for money services. I wouldn't like the way the motion is worded to give the impression that somehow we, as I said, we're a little Englander, and you know. But what I would suggest is, I think to safeguard the interests of the council, we as others have said, we do not know what is going to emerge from the devolution and efficiency white paper. Personally, I do think that it is likely, as it progresses, to move towards an elimination of one tier of local government in Derbyshire. So I do think that we should make it clear that we wouldn't expect any officer resource or financial resource to be spent on option one until we've looked at the implications and considered fully the implications of the devolution white paper. So I would suggest to David and Jeff that that is made clear in their proposal, that while option one is taken forward, it's taken forward in principle, but that doesn't imply at this stage that there'll be any, as I said, resource or capital expenditure committed, which option one implies at the present time. I think we need to wait to see what the implications of the white paper are first.
Thank you.
I'll leave it to David when he comes back.
I'll just come to the proposer first. Would you be in agreement with that?
I mean, it's difficult to know what that expenditure would be. I mean, it's normal. I think there's £350,000 is normal expenditure on modifications to the building, as would happen ordinarily. And if we got another tenant in on the way, then there may be some costs associated with that. So I'm inclined not to sort of hamstring us at this stage. But I understand your point about independence, Peter, and I would perhaps change the word from to another phrase you used, which is safeguard the interests of Derbyshire Dales District Council by adopting option 1. Would that be better?
Councillor Bond, your view, please.
Yes, I'm very happy with that, Chair. I'm particularly taken with the idea that we promote not a little England, but a positive culture, and we're promoting that culture rather than withdrawing from the world as such, and setting up a kind of mini state.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hobson next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to agree with Councillor O'Brien. I think if you look at your taxpayers out and about, they would want to see you getting best value when they perhaps look at the Town Hall down the road and us and Derbyshire County Council and do wonder why there are 3 lots of local government. So at this stage, I am minded to support option 1. Everybody's made some really good points. I think there's too much going on that we don't want to be committing this council to long-term things which we've got no control over. So I'm minded to support. Thank you.
Councillor Bull. Councillor Bull, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, well, along with my fellow councillors here, we're not trying to say that we're a one-man band, because we provide public service for our communities, as does the county and obviously Matlock Town Council as well at the end of the day. But yeah, money has to become, and what Paul said in his report and when he was speaking was saying that half of the ideas of change would end up being the district council fitting the bill, and I don't really think that that is something that we really ought to be doing in any aspect. So I feel that doing the minimalist thing that we possibly can do is the best way forward at the time, until we know in the future what is happening with the different tiers of the council. So I will be supporting this option. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter, please.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the whole reason for tonight is so that we can send a clear message to those working behind the scenes with OPE. And I'd like to congratulate Paul on the way that he eloquently put the case forward. It's been a difficult one because he isn't supposed to be seen to leading the council into a decision, and it comes much stronger if the membership support each other in this. There's no, well, I was surprised the Little England comment, but this isn't any personal, it isn't political, it's just trying to protect the Derbyshire Dales District Council and what that means to the people of the Dales. And I've already outlined tonight what we're doing in the community, and that needs to continue. And we can only do that as a unit. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Burford, did you have your hand up for debate, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I apologise for my rather flippant question earlier, but I think I remain concerned about the lack of a suitable site or location for the Matlock Library. We don't want to lose it. But if you look around the town centre, you can't really visualise any other sites for a library in the future. I know it's not our service, it's County Council, but I think most users of the library and other residents will probably not necessarily see the library as a service of County Council or County Hall up the road. It's a sort of a community service that's shared by all in a way. That obviously the present site is totally unsuitable and has been for a number of years, and of course it's quite a valuable site, I guess, as well. But we do have to bear in mind the need to protect our library in the future and to find a new site for it. And I just can't see, a bit like trying to find housing sites in Matlock, it's almost impossible to think of suitable sites for any of these facilities. And a few years ago, I mean, Paul Wilson will be aware, and other members will be aware that when Matlock Community Vision were looking at the Bakewell Road scheme, and we commissioned students from Nottingham University, MA architecture students, to come up with various ideas, and they all came up with virtually all of them, came up with ideas for a library and a big medical centre, taking over from the 2 existing GP practices in Matlock. And that's not been realised, obviously, because of the lack of funding, external funding to do a decent scheme. But that was something that was seen as so important. But when they did their resident survey, that was one thing that people prioritised: the need for a library to be protected in Matlock.
Councillor Wilton.
Thank you. It was really just to say I can understand the commentary there about sounding protectionist, but I think we're just fiercely proud of it, and I think that's okay too, to feel that. But I think to go back to one of the real key things, just to take us back, is retaining staff. We're struggling to do that. If we've got a community here that can support that, then surely that's part of our mission statement of what we're doing, and a lot of the things that we've been looking at while we've been councillors here. So yeah, so option 1.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, I think Councillor Maelstrom was before me. I don't know if you spotted that.
Yeah, Councillor Maelstrom.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, there seems to be broad support for option 1, but for varying reasons, including keeping the independence of the council, it being the safest holding option in the face of so many unknowns, and also a desire to preserve the culture of the council, particularly for the benefits of the employees. Is it possible that we could just move a vote on option 1 without having to specify our reasons, because we have different reasons?
Yeah, good idea.
Councillor Hughes.
I think the motion was really that. It wasn't to give any reasons.
Right, Councillor Buckler, and then I'm just going to ask Barbara to read what the motion actually says, the revised motion where we're not going to be to Little Britain. Thank you.
If you can read the revised motion, that might have an impact on what I say. So,
would you like to read the revised motion then, please?
Yes, Chair. It's to safeguard the interests of Derbyshire Dales District Council by adoption of option 1.
Councillor Buckler.
Yeah, it's the point about the. I support option 1 because there's no point in doing anything else at the moment with the local government review. But I completely agree with Sue Hobson that what we should be doing is acting in the best interests of our residents, and that might be to do something else. I think also that the working population is changing. One of the things that we are struggling with is to do with recruitment of new people rather than retention of existing people. And hybrid working is going to be more normal, and so we need to be reviewing this and looking at this as things change, because I think if we said that what we wanted to do was to ensure that everybody came into the office, we are not going to recruit any young people, because that's not the way that working practices are going. So I think that I'm quite happy to support option 1 because there doesn't make any sense in doing anything else. But it's because there doesn't seem to be, there's no sense in doing anything else, not for any of these other reasons. And so I think that we need to be looking at that in the long term rather than. So yeah, support option 1 because there doesn't seem any sense to do anything else.
I'm going to go to Councillor Linthwaite, and then we're going to go to I'm going to go to Councillor Linthwaite, then Councillor Slack, and then we're going to go to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a lot of conversations about the culture, about Derbyshire Dales as a distinct identity, about the staff and all the rest of it. But it seems to me it's much more straightforward than that. Are options 2 and 3 a good deal for this council? And I think the answer is they're not. It's as straightforward as that.
Thank you. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with option 1 without a doubt. We are pretty successful council compared to the county council, which are in disarray, as we know, and I think we're better on our own. And we're not Little England. This is common sense to stop on your own and to do your own thing, and we owe it to the residents of the Derbyshire Dales that we stop as a unified council, which we are. We're not in disarray as the county are, so it'd be silly really to go with the county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. So the motion, I'm going to ask Barbara to read it one more time. This is what we're going to vote on.
Thank you, Chair. It's to safeguard the interests of Derbyshire Dales District Council by adoption of option 1.
So I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favour of that, please. Can I check for against, please? Abstentions? That is carried unanimously. So we've got 2 more items before I have to extend the meetings. So item 15 is the by-election results report of the returning officer. Mr Wilson, would you care to enlighten us, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Factual report to be noted by Council in my capacity as returning officer to formally declare the outcome of the by-election held on the 14th of November in the District Council ward of Carver and Longston, and the election of Councillor Mrs Froggatt.
Questions, please. Councillor Bull.
Not a question, Chair. Obviously, we've already had the welcoming of our Councillor Froggatt from this election, so I would like to propose that we've noted that Paul Wilson has done his duty as a returning officer.
Thank you very much. Let's find a seconder, please. Councillor Bates. Right, it's been moved, it's been seconded. Do we want to debate this matter? No. So let us move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting Paul's report? Against, please. Abstentions? That is unanimous. Welcome, Councillor Froggatt, for the second time this evening. Now we move on to the final agenda item at 17 minutes past 8, and it's the membership of political groups political balance, entitlement to seats and committees, and Barbara is going to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a process report, really, members. As per the recommendations, the report asks the Council to note the revised political composition of the Council as a result of the recent by-election, as reported by the Chief Executive in the last item. And as the report says, the political grouping on the Council has now changed, so that means the Council is required to review the proportionality table in respect of the allocation of committee seats, and also to make appointments to vacant seats on those committees in light of the revised proportionality table. And the present occupation of the seats and proposals is shown in the supplementary paper. It's proposed that Councillor Froggatt is appointed to Community Environment, Planning Committee and Licensing Appeal Committees, and that Councillor Hobson is a reserve member to the Planning Committee. And really that's all I need to say.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Buckler?
To do with the working groups, is political proportionality required on the working groups? Because the biodiversity working group isn't on the list, and so what's happening with that? I didn't think that they were. I thought the point of one of the points about moving from the biodiversity subcommittee to a biodiversity working group was that we didn't need to retain the political proportionality of them.
That's absolutely correct, Councillor. It's shown on the sheet really for clarity and completeness. It's not a proportional committee of the council, so it doesn't come within the proportionality requirements.
That's all the working groups.
That would be the case unless the working groups are actually formal decision-making groups of the council, or their formal advisory groups advising a committee of the council. That would be the same for all working groups.
So the question is about the biodiversity working group isn't included in this list. Is that an oversight, or is that because there's proposals to merge the climate change and biodiversity working groups, in which case this isn't our agreed position, for example, on the climate change working group if it's the merged climate change and biodiversity working group.
Yeah, that's correct. There's no change to the biodiversity working group. We're talking here about the proportional committees of the council. It's totally unaffected.
Any more questions, please? Councillor Buttle.
I'm a bit baffled by the biodiversity working group and the climate change working group, because I had the impression that we were kind of merging them and making them into something a bit bigger and a bit more generic, a little bit wider and a little bit more diffuse amongst the council. So we are going to revisit this for May, aren't we? And we're not going to just ignore the biodiversity working group for the next however many months.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's not something I'm really too familiar with at this stage, but I think this report doesn't change anything, doesn't make any decisions in respect of that. I think it would be for other officers to answer any questions on that.
Right, well, could I just check that we're okay to continue to work together with the biodiversity working group with our new climate change and biodiversity officer? Together we can just do as we want, really, because we're working parties and we're not politically whatever. Is that how it works?
I think that would be outside the scope of this report. This report is purely to review the allocations on former committees in light of the recent by-election, and that's all it's doing.
Okay then, thanks.
Councillor O'Brien, question?
Yeah, sorry, we're labouring this point. Would you agree, Barbara, to include on the list the biodiversity working group?
Can I do a point of order, please? The written paper doesn't reflect what's on the written paper. So the electronic paper has the biodiversity group on. The written paper doesn't appear to have it, which is probably what's causing the confusion.
Right. Barbara, are you able to... I think what we're trying to do, basically, is because there's been this by-election, and Councillor Nass makes a valid point, if it's on the actual computer but not on the printed word, then the biodiversity group comes in that.
Yeah, I think this, as I said, this paper is purely to reflect the outcome of the by-election. It's not to look at any working groups, the future of them, the merging of them, or whatever. It's purely to reflect the political proportionality following on the council former committees following the by-election.
Chair, point of order.
Just hang on, Councillor Hughes. I'm just going to bring in the Chief Executive. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to clarify exactly what Barbara has said, the political proportionality only applies to the council's formal committees. So irrespective of what working groups currently exist in the future, whether they are merged in any way, is entirely separate from the consideration of this report, which is just about political proportionality. So acknowledging the biodiversity working group is not on the printed copy that's circulated. It still exists, it still has members identified to it, it can still meet. There's no proposal to merge it with anything else, but it's not impacted by this particular report.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd like to move to a vote. I want to go home. I'm hungry.
I think that's a good idea. So,
I'm moving that we move to a vote.
Are you going to move this recommendation?
Okay, then I'll move the recommendation too.
Does that find seconded by Councillor Burfoot? Does anybody want to debate this further? No. Thank you.
Can I just say it's an excellent report?
All I will say is you bring valid points up, and if there is a clerical error, just make sure that it works out. The biodiversity group is a very important group. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour, please vote. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously, and it is now 8:25. Thank you.